January morning didn't feel any different than any other morning when I first woke up. My day started with an awful odor emanating from the kitchen and my breakfast tasting absolutely rancid. Nobody seemed to understand what I was talking about, no matter how much I tried explaining this weird and almost indescribable awful smell and taste. A quick Google search brought up one word: parosmia. I'd never heard of this strange post-COVID symptom before. How could a virus, which I'd gotten over nearly 3 months earlier, suddenly cause this alteration of my taste and smell? After hours of searching the internet for more answers, it was clear that nobody, even specialists and doctors, knew what the cause behind the symptoms was. They only had theories yet to be proven. All hope wasn't lost yet, though. Nearly every source noted that this was a rather temporary condition and that it should fade within 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks were the longest year of my life. By April, it was clear that I had barely eaten in 2 months based on my physical state. Online classes had made it easy to spend the days in bed, sleeping the hours away. Eating had become a chore, and I couldn't tolerate anything other than small amounts of plain white rice at a time every day or so. By the time I had finally let my family and doctors know what was going on, I was immediately hospitalized, and they couldn't believe none of my organs had shut down yet. To be honest, I still couldn't tell you much about what happened that February or March. It's almost like I was in a comatose state. The doctors didn't understand what I was going through. They had never had a patient dealing with this condition, nor had they ever even heard of it. But one thing had become clear: I just couldn't eat anything. Even the most bland foods such as white rice, white bread, and pasta had turned against me. Unfiltered water tasted and smelled like straight bleach, so showering was an awful and gag-inducing endeavor. After days in the hospital stabilizing my condition and dealing with some refeeding syndrome, I was sent home with a feeding tube taped to the side of my face. There were no answers, no solutions or cure. I felt betrayed by my own body. I was only 18, I was healthy, and they had told me that if I had gotten COVID, it would be just like a cold and I'd be fine. They told me I had nothing to worry about, but here I was, months later, unable to eat and being fed liquid through my nose directly into my stomach. Nobody around me could relate, and I'd never felt so alone or isolated in my life. My clothes constantly seemed to grow in size. By summertime, I had lost nearly 70 pounds. Not only did I feel isolated, but I didn't even recognize the person I saw in the mirror anymore, especially with her tube. I didn't know who she was, but I loved the way that she looked, which continued to spiral my health downwards. Even with my tube feedings, my mental and physical health were at an all-time low. My entire life revolved around this new condition, having to schedule hour-long feeds and hauling around my cartons of liquid food in a pump, having to explain to each new person and classmate I met why I couldn't eat, especially when I returned to campus for the fall. I saw specialists and neuroscientists from around the country, and although they had determined at this point that nerve damage was the cause, there was no given timeline for when I would heal, and none of them could give me straight answers. The possibility of this being permanent was a constant fixture in my mind. Living felt like a constant chore, and I had run out of energy. There were some good days, but many bad days, and I had to try my best to continue to live as normal of a life as possible. At approximately the 8th month, I celebrated being able to eat bread again. It was a small victory, celebrated with numerous happy tears from me and my loved ones. By the 9th month, after being able to eat a little bit of bacon and some potatoes, I removed my feeding tube. Never had I felt so liberated in my entire life. It's been over a year since that January morning, and life isn't back to normal, but I'm continuing to make small victories. I can eat a much wider range of foods, but things don't taste the way that they used to. It's just my new normal. All this time feeling isolated and alone gave me time to think about what my purpose was and how my story could impact others. COVID and the pandemic as a whole took something away from all of us, from as small as missing out on an in-person graduation to as big as losing a family member. I've yet to meet someone who made it to 2022 completely unscathed. I found it so important that we're grateful for the small things in life, and we don't lose sight of the privileges that we do have, no matter how small they seem. Never once in my life would I have thought that being able to eat was a privilege. My story isn't over, but the progress that I've made since January is something that I'm proud of. You never truly know when something as simple and fundamental of life, such as eating, could just suddenly be taken away from you.